Good morning, and thanks for tuning in to K-Talk AM 630. It is a beautiful Wednesday morning.
Nice crisp mornings.
It's crazy.
Love it.
So nice. I was up at 6 o'clock today, and I'm just like the sunlight popping in through the window. And
I love waking up by the sunlight. That's the only way to wake up.
It's the best. Actually, I woke up all weekend by the sunlight.
Yeah.
Up in Idaho.
I'm jealous.
I was at the Granite Creek Guest Ranch. It used to be a working ranch guest experience where you actually go on cattle drives and stuff like that, and it's actually converted into more of a bed and breakfast.
Okay.
And it was, oh my gosh, I'm losing the words that I need to say.
So how many people does it sleep out there? How big?
So they have all these little cabins that are, most of the cabins are like 100 years old.
Oh yeah.
And they've been moved from other homesteads.
Okay,
so this is an original homestead. And I don't know how this guy homesteaded, because to be able to do it, you had to be there for 5 years as a homesteader so that you could actually have the property. You had to qualify on the homesteading process. And so he was living during the winters in 4 to 6 feet of snow for 5 years.
That's got to be tough.
The guy that had the land before him defaulted on it because he left. He's like, I can't do this. It was too hard.
So he toughed it out.
So he toughed it out and ended up getting it. But it's been in this family's ownership forever. Well, since they took it over.
Homestead. Yeah.
But built his own little cabin. They've acquired more land and brought those cabins into this location. They've got their own natural spring. They've got their own fishing pond.
See, I think that would be
stocked it.
I think that would be the ideal kind of prepper location. Is you live and work at a bed and breakfast in the middle of the mountains, and you don't have to go anywhere.
Except for the winter part.
Except for the winter part.
6 feet
obviously.
of snow. Whew.
Yeah, that's a lot to deal with. Cabin fever.
Absolutely. You need like an underground bunker system with like really cool,
you need
like
snow
a
cat.
hobbit hole. You need there you go.
Yeah, get a hobbit hole, build a hillside home, and then have a snowcat so you can get around, get to town, and so forth.
Or one of those industrial snowblowers that they use on the highways up in Aspen or up in Park City. Park City's here.
Fairview,
Aspen's in Colorado.
Fairview Top.
There you go. So, but yeah, it was. They have horseback riding. They have your breakfast is taken care of. Your lunch and dinner's on your own. Actually, Eric with K-Talk was there too, and I smoked him 3 times in chess. I just want everyone to know that. It was awesome. He's good, but I am better.
You're a strategist, so you're the right man.
I'm like 8 moves ahead of myself. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, if I go over here, what's going to happen? Oh, there goes my queen. But it was so much fun. My wife and I needed that vacation so bad, and so we booked it at the time of PrepperCon. Went up. It's a 5-star review place. Like it's totally. You're in a slice of history, enjoying the mountains. It's right. You've got an overlook of the Grand Tetons. They've got a mule you can go ride. That's the 4x4 mule. So it's seat 6. Yeah, side by sides. Seat 6. Mule. They'll take you up on rides on that. You've got horseback riding you can take up. But I mean, there's an active bear population there. There's an active moose population there. I missed the moose. I went to bed too early, and I got a text like 30 minutes after I was asleep. Hey, there's a moose right outside right now. And I'm like, no.
So in other words, keep track of your children while you're there, right?
Absolutely. It was awesome. Amazing hospitality. You can check it out. Granite Creek Guest Lodge or Guest Ranch. Granite Creek Guest Ranch. If you Google it, you'll find their Airbnb. Or you can just type in granitecreekguestranch.com and call them to see what their availability is. But they're right off the Snake River, which is one of my favorite rivers. They're minutes from Palisade Reservoir. A lot of great fishing over there. There's I just love it. Swan Valley.
It's beautiful.
Square ice cream. I love square ice cream cones. I don't know why square is better. But it was just fantastic. So this hour is actually brought to you by Survival Medical. These guys are amazing. They actually 20-year shelf life on medical products. So when you think about preparedness, you think about getting all the stuff you need. A lot of people will spend, $500-$600 on a really good medical kit. In 18 months, most of it's expired. As far as like your gels, your burn
still
gels,
usable but
expired. Your Band-Aids start losing their adhesion. The nice thing about this one is if you've got your food storage, you got everything else, you just buy this. And it's not just the big, huge kit. It's everything. I mean, I've got the ultralight backpacker kit in my go bag. I've got the Voyager kit in my bug out bag, my 96-hour kit, if you will, or for those of you who don't prep that much, maybe your 72-hour kit. But I love their product. I love the way they do things. I think it's turning the entire industry on their ear and changing how things are done. And they're actually launching a marine line right now. So for all of you coastal boat, have fun kind of people, as well as the Utah Lake and Jordanelle kind of guys, something that take with you, leave it in the boat.
Just leave it there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have to pack it in and pack it out every time. And you'll probably have that kit longer than you'll have your boat.
Probably, yeah, unless you leave it in your boat when you sell your boat.
True. So they're sponsoring the show. We're so appreciative of them.
And John will be on next week with us as well.
And we're going to continue our awesome
sanitation
discussion that we didn't really finish last time.
We barely scratched the surface last time. It was a lot of fun, especially getting the texts from John while we're sitting here talking about
feces
and poo.
I think we said that word about 1,000 times.
That's John's favorite word. So I'll just say it again, feces.
There we go. He's listening now.
You can giggle like a little schoolboy.
So we have a fun day ahead of us. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit. For the first segment, we're going to talk about liberties, about our rights, about freedom, what that really means. Second segment, we're going to jump into pandemics. Dun, dun, dun.
Kind of continuing along the same line as our sanitation theme, which will continue next week as well. I really, you know me, I like to get in the details. I love talking about the nitty-gritty and really how to get prepared. And a lot of that is about knowledge. So we're going to focus a lot of that today about pandemics. We have a great guest coming up after the first break. His name is Kenneth McClelland. He wrote the book, The Pandemic Preparedness Guide, and we'll have him on and we'll talk pandemics.
Absolutely. And if you want to pop in with your 2 cents throughout the show, give us a call. The number here is 801-254-5855. We love having our callers call in. With that, I want to talk about this movement, Liberty Rising. The Bundys, the Lavoy Finicum and his family, I just totally lost their name, the other rancher family that just lost their freedom. Totally losing it. But here's the thing. We have a special opportunity coming up in July 30th. They're going to be doing a really amazing roundtable speaking presentation. It's actually going to be done. It's called Preserving, Protecting, and Defending the Constitution, Lest We Lose the Republic. All the proceeds go to support the Lavoy Finicum family. They lost their income when they lost their father. And the speakers actually include some really amazing people. Ben McClintock, Chief Investigative Reporter and co-founder of Defending Utah. Angus McIntosh, I love that name, Angus. Good Scottish name. He must be a good brogue. Doctorate graduate in range science and agricultural economics from New Mexico State University. Mark Hare, Sr., co-founder of nonprofit education institution, the Center for Self-Governance. Garrett Smith, who's an attorney. He's also on the Liberty lineup, I believe, every Monday.
Same with Ben.
Great show. And then Lavoy Finicum's daughters, Brittany Beck and Tara Tenney. They're both going to be talking, as well as Lavoy Finicum's wife, Jeanette Finicum. So we've got a really good opportunity there. Let's focus on our liberties. We here at Gay Talk Radio and at PrepperCon, it's all about personal liberties. This country was founded on the idea that we have the ability to govern ourselves. We have the ability to take care of ourselves.
And before we move on, go to the Defending Utah Facebook page or defendingutah.org, and you can find the link to where you can get tickets for this event.
Yeah, the tickets are $15 if you buy them online early. If you don't buy them online, you'll end up buying them at the door for $20. But it's Saturday, July 30th.
Because it all goes to the family. So
yep. It's from 6 to 10 p.m., and it's going to be at the 748 North, 1340 West, Orem, Utah. And that's actually at the
Boy Scouts
the
office.
BSA building, Boy Scouts of America, the Salt Lake.
Orem? It is in Orem.
Yeah,
off
Orem.
800
so
North.
Orem, it's the Utah County office.
Right down in my neck of the woods. So I will be there.
You'll be there. I'll be driving all the way down for it. You'll see the PrepperCon truck and Forerunner out there. But, there's not enough going on to defend our constitutional rights. I think that's one of the biggest things in prepping that I love is people are really focusing on self-reliance and liberty. two things I'm passionate about. Liberty being, let's focus on our constitutional rights. Let's focus on why this country was created to be the way it is. Why we have a constitution. Why it was so necessary. I mean, we're under the control of a foreign government. I can say that now because they're no longer here.
Up.
But at the time, there was no representation. We were being taxed beyond belief.
But not as much as we're taxed today.
Exactly. And only 3% of the country at the time was pushing for this revolution.
3% actually stood up and fought for the revolution.
That's what blows me away. 3%. Yeah. So what are we doing? Who is the 3% today? Stand up, make a stand, do something right, help educate your neighbors, help educate your community, understand what their rights are, understand what liberty really means.
Now, understand this is not about anarchy.
No.
Not at all. It is, and where do I start with this? We need some form of government, and that's what the Constitution is, a very basic, where the people govern the government, and the government takes care of the larger picture items like the military, and sure, throw roads in there and so forth. But that is what we need to get back to. Yep. Will it ever happen? We can all argue that, but that's not what our show's about.
I'm hoping it is.
Yeah.
I think what we're trying to get to is we need to preserve America. We need to do the right thing. I see so often people are like, well, the politically correct thing to do. Like this whole gorilla situation.
Yeah.
Everyone's flying off the handle over a gorilla and a child, but they're not flying off the handle about their liberties. They're not flying off the handle when a bill gets passed that makes it harder for your family to be your family anymore. Or they're trying to take rights away from, different government organizations are trying to take the parents' rights away and say that the children belong to the government. Well, that's not the case. The government belongs to the people. We need to make sure we're voting. We need to make sure we're active in the polls. We need to make sure we're active in every town hall.
Yeah, the word that sticks out to me is do. What are we going to do about it?
Yep.
We're here talking about it. Is that actually going to result in anything? What are we doing? Are we physically doing something? Are we talking? Are we just clicking the like button? Are we just sharing posts? I mean, that all helps to raise awareness. But are we reaching out to those who really do not understand? And that's what really our mission is to find those people who don't know about prepping, who don't know about preparedness, who really don't have that larger picture, which I wasn't included in that, less than a decade ago. And I won't go there, but I woke up, and I know others can as well.
Absolutely.
They can get the spirit of it. They can, and so that's why they need to come to this event. Send people to it. Share it. Get on. We'll make a post on PrepperCon as well on the Facebook page, and so we can all share that and get people to this event. It's
a highly educational event. I think that's why we're helping support this. Number one, PrepperCon's about helping the community, helping the family, helping us get more self-reliant. And part of that is standing up for what's right, what you believe is right, what I believe is right, what your convictions are. So be vocal, have fun. We have a great show today. We're really excited. We're going to continue the conversation after the hour or after the block, talking about pandemics, talking about what could happen, what has happened in other places, why Kenneth McClelland wrote the book he wrote, and how that affects us. It's a great day. We're so excited to be here. Remember, we are sponsored this hour by Survival Medical. Perfect as we're going to talk about pandemics. They've got kits for that.
That's true.
They do. Mm-hmm. We wore them last week. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break. Check out survival-medical.com in the meantime, and we'll be right back with you. All right, welcome back to PrepperCon Radio on K-Talk AM 630. Join us on Facebook. We're about to post a few fun things there. Join us on Twitter at KTKK. And as always, check out k-talk.com. We're going to be doing a rebranding, relaunch here in September. The website's going to be launching here in a few days, or a few weeks, I guess.
I think end of the week is what I think Eric was saying.
Woo!
Hopefully.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for 5 months now.
6 months now.
6 months? Probably 7 months. But it looks good. Great new content. We're going to be doing a lot of fun things there. It's not just going to be radio anymore. We're going to have the archives there. We're going to have some content videos. So you'll see some of the PrepperCon content there, some tutorials, some product reviews, all of our radio shows. You also get to see the Liberty Lineups content. You'll get to see
Defending Utah.
You'll get to see all the different groups that we have here. Paul's show in the morning. All the archives are there. So if you ever want to, and they're currently there on the current site as well, but it's going to be easier to find in the future. You'll also get to see all the bios. You can see what we look like, us crazy guys. You hear our voices all the time, but it's fun to put a face to the name.
And we do not have radio faces, I must say. Scott and I were speaking directly about
I don't know what that
us.
means. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But
radio voice, but not a radio face.
I don't have a radio voice, really, I don't think. But I can do a pretty good Alex Jones. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a crisis. We're not going to go into that, though. We will
eventually, though. We will eventually.
Before we jump into our guest, reminder, we are being sponsored by survival-medical.com. I would recommend to everybody, check out their Voyager series. Put it in your car. Keep it there always. And then also look at their cover-up kits. As we're about to talk to our new guest, Kenneth R. McClelland, we're going to bring him on the line. But check out survival-medical.com for your first aid. They are the only first aid kit designed for long-term storage, and they're going to be in Sam's Club next month here in Utah. So make sure you get out there and support them and get those and protect your family. So without further ado, let's bring on our guest.
Hello, Ken. Are you there?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, and thanks for coming on with us this morning. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and your listeners.
Absolutely. It was nice to talk to you for the first time yesterday, and we have been Facebook friends for a number of months, and when I got my hands on your book, and thought it would, been talking about sanitation and during SHTF during a disaster, which can be extremely difficult, and we wanted to touch on the pandemic side of it. Briefly, 2 segments is really not a whole lot of time to get into the subject, but we want to create some awareness. And I guess, tell us a little bit about yourself, why you wrote the book. From what I understand, I guess you're primarily an author.
Well, actually, I work for the government, but I'm not in the medical field directly.
Mm-hmm.
I was writing a book about it was a historical novel about the 1918 influenza pandemic. And I was fascinated with that. And then I started hearing on radio and other news programs about the bird flu that was going on over in Vietnam and China, and it was just all over the place, about 10 years ago. I started paying attention, and I thought, I probably should study up on that a little bit and maybe add a few pages on the back of my novel about what's coming. Well, that few pages turned into 330 pages and made a book of its own.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's an interesting subject.
So what was it that got you really concerned, and as you're doing your research for this book, that made you want to write the Pandemic Preparedness Guide?
Well, the 1918 influenza pandemic was also a bird flu. When they found, when I read that DNA testing had revealed that, I thought, what, the same thing could happen now. And one of the things I came across in my research was that they said a severe pandemic happens about every 34 to 37 years, and they said we're at the 45-year mark, so they said we're overdue for it.
It just kind of like earthquakes and everything else, we're a little overdue for disasters that we need to be prepared for.
And the way things are happening, like this past year, maybe I'm sure a lot of your listeners were paying attention, but many people weren't. Last year we had 3 different strains of bird flu attack our food supply. They said it was the worst assault on America's food supply in our history. And 50 million chickens and turkeys destroyed, taken off our tables. And
that's right.
Goodness knows how many eggs, went along with it. But at any time, that could have made the species leap from birds to mankind, and that's pretty scary.
Mm-hmm. And I know your book does outline the different phases, I guess, of a pandemic. But let's go ahead and talk about what actually a pandemic is versus an epidemic, and so forth.
Okay, an epidemic is something, like a flu outbreak at a school or maybe even a neighborhood or even a whole city. Mm-hmm. But a pandemic, that's around the world. In other words, it's a global thing. It's going to spread that quickly and that broad rather than just localized.
Okay. So, and I know that we have seen most of these, say the swine flu, the bird flus and so forth, come out of essentially third world countries, come around the world all the way over to the United States.
Correct. China is the hotbed for most of the new bird flus that come out, or most of the new flu strains. And throughout history, had some problem. And there was a one province specifically where a lot of it originated, but I'd be darned if I can remember the name of that place. But, this is kind of concerning because President Obama signed some legislation where we can now send our chickens over to China to have it processed and then sent back here as nuggets.
I heard that.
So we don't even know quality. We don't even know
anything.
Cleanliness. I mean, we lose complete control over that, and now we don't know what's going to be in our food. If they could add additives to it, I'm sure, right?
Sure, and not only that, but when you look at how they've handled other things, like there's been arsenic found in dog food. There's been tainted baby food. They've sent all kinds of things to the United States that was tainted that weren't even directly food related. Weren't always food related, including medications that were fraudulent. They were fake medication. So it's kind of concerning that we're sending chicken over there because, well, let me give you an example. The Super Bowl that we just had, the last Super Bowl, the FDA was warning that there was, I think, 5 million pounds of rat meat found that was marked as chicken coming from China.
Wonderful.
So God only knows what kind of quality control they got there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, excuse me. So, avian flus, bird flus. Why should we be so concerned about those? I know that's one of the main topics throughout your book. The H5N1, H1N1, H7N9, all these different bird flus. Why should we be so concerned, and why do we need to become knowledgeable about bird flus?
I think, my own personal opinion, I think bird flu is probably going to be the big virus that hits everybody. I don't think it'll be Ebola, although Ebola was very concerning. It's not going to be Zika or dengue fever or anything like that. And again, this is just my opinion from what I've read. But I believe it's going to be bird flu because we have such an interaction with the bird species. And I'm talking primarily chickens, but
okay.
And the fact that anybody on a farm, well, let me back up a little bit. On third world countries, their farms, there are a lot of backyard farms. This includes Mexico even. They have little backyard farms, and when their chickens are sick, they get the snotty nose and stuff like that. Some of the owners will actually clean the noses of the thing with their mouth, and then they'll spit it out. But,
what?
Yeah,
I've actually seen videos about that. That's disgusting.
Yeah, it's pretty gross, but all it takes is for one person to get that, and they can easily start the pandemic. And then we have to be concerned with how quickly people travel from point A to point B.
Right. So they have much more contact with the birds themselves because they're do-it-yourselfers. They're homesteaders. They have their own. They're more self-sufficient, self-reliant over there because of they have chickens in their backyard, obviously.
Sure. Well, another thing that happens, or that has happened, and I'm sure it's going to happen again. The government, let's say Thailand or wherever, let's say they have a big bird flu problem. They tell all these backyard farmers, hey, you got to destroy your chickens. That may be their only means of food or their only means of livelihood. So they haven't been quite willing to kill their birds because the government doesn't have the money to reimburse them.
Right.
So what they've been doing is they've been selling the tainted meat or eating it. And it's just a recipe for disaster.
Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess the bird flu is essentially an influenza. It's just like a common flu that we get here. We have our flu seasons every year. There really isn't, I guess, much difference in how it's transmitted or really what that virus is other than, maybe it's obviously worse than most of our flus that we see. Is that correct?
Oh, that's right. But it used to be in the past, up until the past maybe 10 years ago, birds would get bird flu and it generally didn't harm them. But, that started about 10 years ago, the bird flu started killing the animals, and that didn't used to happen. They used to have a resilience to the influenza. But now, it's so strong that it's killing the birds themselves. And it's not just birds that get bird flu. I know you've heard of swine flu, but they also have feline flu, and they found feline flu in dolphins. I don't know how that works out, but all kinds of animals get influenza.
Yeah. Well, you've seen those videos online of the cat and the dolphin kissing, right? I guess that's probably where.
So then what, that dolphin goes out into the wild and kisses all the other dolphins? That little slut.
Passes. So, you were talking about this influenza of 1918, and I believe that we can learn from history is how we prepare for the future. So tell us a little bit more about this influenza of 1918, and that's obviously going to happen again. We're beyond our 39 years when we typically have a pandemic of some sort, what should we be looking for that would be mirror or similar or rhyme to the 1918 influenza pandemic?
If you're asking what it's going to look like or what it might look like?
Yeah, what it might look like, or where do you think it's going to come from? What we should be, what can we learn from that pandemic then that we can apply now?
Well, the one thing that that sticks out with me was how easily readily it spread. Okay. I mean, it just spread from person to person so badly that cities would outlaw gatherings. They said no more football games, no more bond rallies. During World War I,
no, we're going to school.
Right, everything was just canceled, and and then again, this is the cities that made that proclamation. Some of them didn't, and it cost them dearly. Mm-hmm. What they started practicing was, when they did get together, was social distancing, and that's something that we need to remember and employ ourselves if that ever happens.
What's your name?
So social distance is essentially, if you and I were talking, we would keep at least a 4-foot distance between us. Okay. Because while we're talking, you talk to people, and it's like, man, they're spitting all over your clothes, and that 4-foot distance, you're less likely to encounter their spittle. But the other thing was that they wore masks, and that's something that I imagine is going to be, in some cities back then required it. I imagine that's going to be required now, that people would wear some kind of a mask if they have to be outside.
Yeah. Now I was, excuse me, I was reading in your book about this 1918 pandemic. I guess it started in the military. At a particular military base, and it spread so quickly. I mean, within days. I was reading some of your totals. One day, 1,500 people would be diagnosed with the flu, and then the next day, 100 some odd people would die, and then it would just multiply from there. I guess that's what you were saying when you first mentioned how quickly it gets transmitted, and how we need to practice this social distancing, because obviously, touchy-feely is I love to go up, put my hand on Scott's shoulder, and give him a hug, and is that kind of stuff that we need to limit. Obviously, when that becomes apparent, but I guess we can limit or look forward to keeping a distance from people, and is that something we need to start practicing now? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, it's not a bad idea, especially if something starts, no matter what that virus happens to be. If something starts, you're going to want to practice that social distancing, and Scott will want to practice it just as much as you, so I don't think there'll be any hurt feelings, and it could do nothing more than, give you a longer life.
Absolutely.
Or give you more security towards that.
We actually have a caller that would like to talk to us about one of the different types of, viruses that's going around. Let me bring him on the line real quick.
Please do.
And hey, caller, are you there?
Yeah, a couple of things previous. My grandmother had smallpox when she was like 4 or 5, and her sister, who was younger than, I guess she was probably 6, and her sister that was younger than her hitched up the wagon, and took him to the neighbors. I don't know how she even got the harnesses on the horses, but anyway, she's like 5, and I guess my grandmother might have been about 8, but when they went into the neighbors, who were a couple of miles away, the neighbors just backed out of their house when they seen these kids come in, because my grandmother had smallpox.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Spanish flu, I can tell you a story about that. My grandmother, the same grandmother that had smallpox, she'd been married, she got married and everything. She was pregnant, and her cousin was pregnant. And they went up to see her husband, her cousin's husband, on a wagon. And my grandfather took him up there to the hospital on 21st South, the old county hospital. It's not there anymore. The county building's there now. But anyway, they went into. They says she was really worried about her husband. He was a World War I. He came home with Spanish flu, and he's in the hospital. And my grandfather says, "Don't you?" He said to my grandmother, "Don't you go in to the hospital. Stay out on you stay on the buggy." Anyway, my grandmother's cousin, she was pregnant too, and she went in there, and her husband was sick, laying there with the Spanish flu.
No, he's actually an author. He does work for the government, but He does, but he actually writes a lot of books on the side.
Go ahead, keep going.
For fun.
Anyway, he got better, and his wife died. She was pregnant, and she died. She got it, and she died. Now, in San Francisco, there were 7 people waiting for the trolley car in 1918, and 7 of them died of, pulmonary edema, where they were hemorrhaging in the lungs, died, they drowned.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point, because it's not just, obviously, these bird flus we have to worry about. There's there's a
bird flu called psittacosis. If you've got parrots or parakeets in your house, you can get psittacosis, or you have chickens. That's a pretty rough disease. I think it's curable. It's either a protozoa or a...
as you get into...
spirochete that burrows into you, know.
Yep. Yeah, as you get into Ken's book, he really gets into depth on how all of these, they propagate, how they move around, and really gets into detail. And I think the key is education.
The new one out of the Middle East is leishmaniasis. That's like Hansen's disease, leprosy. You can, you get these lesions on your face, and your nose will rot off. You get it inside the roof of your mouth. You can get it on your hands, your arms. You can get it everywhere.
We're going to run into a break right now. We'll be right back.
Thanks for your call.
With Ken. Thanks for your call. We'll talk more about pandemics and
how to prepare.
What's going on and how to be prepared for those things. We're brought to you by survival-medical.com. You're going to need a cover-up kit right away if the pandemic hits. So go ahead and get those online, survival-medical.com. Everything you need to start preparing now.
Those bars on the...
Hey, thanks for hanging with us through the break. You're listening to PrepperCon Radio on AM 630 K-Talk. Follow us on Twitter at KTKK. Well, I guess the at symbol KTKK. Facebook, we're K-Talk Utah. And watch the website. We're going to be making some changes next to the end of the week. Pretty exciting.
Yeah, definitely very cool.
Pretty
and
stoked.
If you happen to be hearing something that sounds like an earthquake in the background, the roof is being redone here at K-Talk in this entire building, and so
and apparently they're working directly over us today.
Right now, they are directly over the top of us.
So if you hear thumping, grinding, screw guns, some guy yelling curse words, that's them, not us.
Whether our show or whatever else show.
Yeah, throughout the day.
So getting back into the pandemic, I guess you're still there, Ken?
Yes, sir.
All right, awesome. I wanted to jump into, I want to talk a lot about preparedness in this segment, but I saw this article just the other day. It was on nationalgeographic.com. It is a long-dreaded superbug found in human and animal in U.S. And apparently this superbug is antibiotic resistant and lacks, I guess, one mutation to be completely resistant to all antibiotics out there. Something like that, if I understood that correctly. You're familiar with this story, Ken?
Yes. Yeah, what it was a 49-year-old woman from Pennsylvania. It didn't say whether she was, a resident there or if she was a recent immigrant or what. All it said was that, what I've read about it, said that she went to the a clinic and she had a urinary tract infection. So while they're treating her for that urinary tract infection, they come across this superbug that they found inside her intestines. And like you said, they found it in pig intestines as well. Now, this isn't uncommon over in Europe. I mean, they've seen several cases of it, but this is the first time that it came to the United States where that's been discovered here. So that was a concern. We've had other superbugs, though, just so people don't think, wow, this is freaky. Mm-hmm. We've had other superbugs. Just about every year there's a list of superbugs that they come out with. And in the past, they've always said, well, these superbugs can't even, they're having a hard time fighting it even with Cipro. Mm-hmm. But with this new one, they talked about colistin. I think that's how it's pronounced, colistin or colistin. Right. I guess that's our antibiotic of last resort. And they said that this right here typically won't take care of this bacteria that she had inside of her. So there's concern about that because if this is the end of the line, I mean, bugs are only going to get worse. These bacteria, they just have a way of developing stronger and stronger traits. Mm-hmm. And if we can't stop them, then, and that's the point I think that most of the media is trying to get across is we've got to do some more research and come up with some better plans for antibiotics because, these antibiotic-resistant infections, they said, CDC says there's about 2 million people a year that get these infections, mm-hmm. and at least 23,000 of them die from it. from the different infections that they get. So that number is going to go up if something like this bacteria that this woman has in her intestines, that's going to go up if the colistin can't take care of it. Obviously, Cipro wasn't working like it used to either.
Yeah, which is really difficult. I mean, it's very, very concerning to me. Now, obviously, the easiest way, the best way to take care of these types of pandemics is to prevent them altogether. I mean, and that's what I want to talk about. Let's talk about prevention. Let's talk about preparation, how we can prepare, because really what it comes down to is once it's happened, it's too late to prepare for it.
Absolutely.
So, go ahead.
Some things that people can do right now, even beyond the prepping, is hygiene. People don't practice personal hygiene. Then anybody that uses a public restroom, they see people fly in and out of there, and it's like, man, didn't your mom teach you to wash your hands? But they do it. And I hate leaving a bathroom with touching the handle anymore because I know the guy that just left here didn't wash his hands. But you can see how easily bacteria can spread from people to people, because of the lack of personal hygiene.
Absolutely.
But that's something that we should all practice and make sure that we teach our children to practice that. When they're washing their hands, make sure they do it for 5 to 10 seconds at least, scrubbing it back and forth. And
it's probably even a good idea to wash your hands before you use the bathroom and then after as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I wash mine before and after, sometimes during. No, but the same thing. Like my grandchildren. When I take my grandson into the bathroom, when they're from the time they're little, I tell them, okay, take this paper towel and use that to turn on, turn the faucet off with a paper towel rather than touching it with your clean hands. But little things like that right there that we can pass on to the younger generation, so it'll become just a force of habit with them.
Yeah. Now you had an example in your book about a lemon wedge. Could you expand on the lemon wedge a little bit?
Yeah. One of the things that I came across was there were some, I don't know which college, but one of the colleges did a study on some of the most bacteria collected on a surface in a typical restaurant, and usually it was the lemon. And you think, well, why the lemon? It's because these lemons are handled by God knows how many people before it gets to you, and they typically don't wash them very well. So they just slice this lemon up and they'll put it on the edge of your glass. Well, that bacteria that's on there, since I read that, I haven't had lemon on my drinks. No thank you.
Well, and so many people take that lemon from the side of their drink, they lift it off, they squeeze it in, and then they drop it into their drink and mix it in. So they're just taking everything on the skin and just...
Well, they found a lot of fecal matter on the lemon skin.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff on there. I've heard the same thing with onions a lot of times in food.
Salads,
onions will pull toxins and hold on to those. Is that something you found as well?
Yeah, not just in a restaurant though. Even in your home, I don't know what it is about it. I haven't studied enough about it. But there's something about onions rather. Once you cut it up, it starts growing bacteria very quickly. I guess just from stuff floating in the air. I don't know, but it's like a magnet for bacteria. So when you cut a lemon, after you take it out of it, peel it or whatever, take that skin off, you start cutting it up. That's when it starts happening. So you got to use it right away. I don't even think they recommend that you keep it in the refrigerator and
just use it and get rid of it. I would have thought the onion would repel bacteria and fungus more so than any others because of its content of what am I thinking of ammonia.
The only thing that onions really repel are your wives. Well, wives. That sounds like you're a plural polygamist. No, your wives, girlfriends, boyfriends. Right. Husbands and wives. People you want to get close to. Onions will repel them 9 times out of 10.
But use garlic if it's a vampire.
There you go.
That's right. They are good for you. They are good for you. I also wanted to touch on briefly about you get into, and we talk about this as well, the just-in-time economics of food delivery for grocery stores and so forth, and how that really affects maybe the spreading of a pandemic or being prepared, I guess, for a pandemic with the just-in-time deliveries and so forth. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, the just-in-time economics for people that aren't familiar with it. When you go to the supermarket and you buy a can of soup, all right, when that cash register, the computer in the register is deducting that can of soup from their inventories. When it gets down to so many cans, then it automatically places an order with the warehouse that might be 300 miles away. And the warehouse says, all right, we need to send more soup there. Because typically a supermarket doesn't have more than 3 days worth of food. And I live here in Florida, and whenever there's a threat of a hurricane, even if it's not coming directly towards us, if it's coming close to us, the supermarkets, man, they get wiped out. I mean, the shelves, everything that's edible and some things that people really don't have a use for, they just buy it because it's panic buying.
Well, one of the things I found, I did a case study in college when I was doing my MBA, and one of the things we found is that 3-day supply that they say that that all the grocery stores have up to have about a 3-day supply. It's not have about, it's have up to. And that's not for all things. So as you're talking about their inventory system, when they get down to so many cans, the reorder limit, it could be 2 cans above the reorder limit for a month, and they don't order the new cans of whatever. But what happens is as soon as they get to that limit, then they order based on the sales cycle, how long it's taking for those items to come out of inventory. So they may not be replenishing that item to a 3-day supply. They may be replenishing it to a 1-day supply. And so a lot of times the food on the shelves, depending on the logistical situation, number one, where is it all being warehoused, how far away it is, they may only have, in most stores, like especially in Utah, they only have about a day and a half of most goods at the location. And that's scary. That's half of what everyone's talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when it comes to preparing for a pandemic, it's just like really preparing for most any other circumstance out there other than maybe a little more specific. And as we're coming up to the end of the show here, let's talk really about maybe what we need to have, what supplies we need to have to prepare for a pandemic, and then what other ways can we prepare ourselves, and then let's get into talking about where we can get your book and so forth.
Okay. First of all, as far as the influenza part of it, or let's say viruses in general, whether it's Ebola or whatever, all right, you want personal masks. If you can get the nice half-face mask with the spin-on filters, that's awesome. Make sure you have some eye protection as well.
More of a respirator than a mask. Okay.
Correct. But that right there, a lot of people can't afford them. So, like myself, I've got the N95 rated mask. The CDC, NIOSH, and agencies across the ocean, they're saying the same thing. That N95, it'll say N-95 on it, and what that means is it'll protect you from 95% of all particulates that are coming through there. The regular kind of mask that you see the guy sweeping the floor with, that's not N95 rated. That's a dust mask.
Dust mask, right?
That will not help you, although it will keep spittle from getting on you, I suppose. But you want an N95 rated mask, and you want to be careful to make sure you try them on the people that you're wanting to protect, because my wife, she's a small woman, and I tried the small size mask from some of the big name manufacturers. None of them fit. So if I waited till the crisis hit and then tried to use it on her, it wouldn't have worked.
And you probably need to shave your beards as well.
Right. You've got to be clean shaven when you wear these masks. I worked at the Space Center for more than 2 decades, and every year we'd go through. I'd try on every kind of mask, and the full face, the half face, all kinds of respirators, and one thing they stressed was, those little hairs that are growing on your face, you might think it's just a small matter, but actually the viruses can actually get in through with the mask seal and the hairs on your face.
Cool. Yep.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why the military pushes everyone to have a clean-shaven face. Back in World War II, that's why Adolf Hitler had the little tiny mustache he had, because anything larger wouldn't fit inside the mask that he had. When I learned that, I was like, oh, crap, I love having my beard. What am I going to do? So I got to carry a sharp knife everywhere I go so I can hurry and shave.
That wouldn't be any fun.
That'll suck.
All right, so we're just a few minutes left. What else can we do? Obviously, like we were saying, keep your hands clean, especially when you go to public places. What else?
You want to secure masks, nitrile gloves, something that you can use to keep yourself safe. And the reason I say that is because, when the stuff hits the fan, it's too late. You're not going to find any of that stuff. And if you do, it's going to be factory seconds or,
stock up on it,
some supermarkets just looking to take your money. You want to stock up on food, because if you don't have food, you're not going to be able to get it then. I guarantee you, when something happens, no matter what it is, whether it's an EMP, a terrorist attack or whatever, if the system shuts down, even momentarily, the supermarket's going to be wiped out, and the first thing they're going to have to start doing is rationing.
You also want to stay away from public places in a pandemic. So if you have your food storage, you're going to not have to go out in public.
Right, good point. And you can't count on the government being there. If we learned anything from from Hurricane Katrina, the aftermath of it. The government couldn't even take care of one small area efficiently. There is no way in God's green earth they're going to be able to take care of all the major cities, let alone those small cities and the average sized cities. They just can't do it. Yeah. They're not going to be able to provide food and water for you, any of those things.
Now, do you recommend setting up your own little clean room in your home? So if you do have to go out, you've got a little barrier where you can take off your suit, take off your stuff, and clean up before you come back into the house? Or what do you recommend?
Something like that right there. I think that it's important that people have the supplies to do that. But, I wouldn't go doing that, until the pandemic is in your area. And as long as you keep your household from being out in public, there's no threat to you. If you shelter in place, if you can, then the bird flu isn't going to sneak in through your back door or something. So,
okay,
the only time you would have to set up a clean room is if you have somebody that's sick or suspected of being sick. Then you want to do that. And I went ahead and put something in the book about that. And I think I got it from the guidelines from the CDC itself on what they say to do.
Well, we are out of time now. Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody where we can get your book, where you can learn more about your about what you do and what you write.
Thank you. The book is called, again, the Pandemic Preparedness Guide. You can get it through Amazon, or you can go to Barnes & Noble and order it, or Books A Million, or probably most any bookstore.
That's right.
And, and it covers more than just viruses. It covers any, irregular situations with our system. It talks about government programs that are set in place right now.
All right, Ken, well, we are out of time. Thanks for everybody for joining us. Thanks, Ken, for coming on with us, and we will catch you guys next week.
Bye-bye now. Thank you.
Thanks.
Power swabs, and it whitens your teeth in 5 minutes. Doesn't leave my teeth feeling